Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream / recording of Hearthstone. So we need to get 5 Tavern Brawls and 3 more Rogue or Warrior victories, and I've already made a Rogue Tavern Brawl deck, so I'm just going to stick with that and keep on playing. We may very well get everything done really quickly. Interesting chat last recording in the stream, somebody asking me about the refugees. I may have walked into getting asked a political question myself. I mostly, as a video game critic, try to focus more on the economics of the video game industry, not the politics. I mean, certainly I could try to make some arguments politically, but they're going to be underinformed and not as well thought out as it probably should be, for my taste at least. That isn't to say that it still might not be more informed than a lot of other people's opinions that get put on the internet. Let's move on with the news. Epic Games awarded $275,000 in grants to Unreal development. Some of those went to games that have already been announced and are in development. Some of those went to newer things. I looked at the entire list, and it seemed like a nice mix and match of things. Nothing amazingly interesting, but nothing amazingly boring either. And it's, in general, I suppose, just nice to see that Unreal is trying real hard to make sure people use Unreal. You gotta invest in the thing that you license. Of course, the license for Unreal and Unity nowadays is really cheap unless you're a AAA video game developer, because they've got so many different schemes where you can, if you're only gonna make like 1,000 units in sale, you don't have to pay anything, or you just pay a percentage in sales, and then if you're making a AAA game, you buy the license completely. In an odd announcement, Neil deGrasse Tyson will show his new space strategy game off at E3. It's called Space Odyssey, and I'll be interested to see what it's all about. Because I don't know what it is really going to focus on. In general, I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but then again, in general, I liked Bill Nye the Science Guy until more of his opinions more recently came out. I don't even know why I liked him. I remember specifically getting on a ride at like Universal Studios or Disney World where Bill Nye the Science Guy was on, and he sounded like a jerk in the recording of that, and I'm like, that was 20 years ago. And it is important to remember also Bill Nye was just a lobbyist, and he got some fame, and he's using his fame. Neil deGrasse Tyson is more of a scientist. He runs a museum. I watched his reboot or remake of the Cosmos series, which was pretty good, but then of course they didn't come back and do anything more with that, so it was 12 episodes or so of kind of long, kind of boring. Odd that his Cosmos series had some cartoons in it, animations of certain things in it. I found the Cosmos series a little light on fact for my taste, but what I really would have preferred is to probably listen to him lecture for a couple hours on the topic. So what he actually adds to, or his involvement in this game, is going to be up in the air. So over the past couple weeks, moving on to the next story, we've talked about how there's Harvest Moon is coming to PC in name, because there's been this weird split that happened apparently a while ago between the creators of Harvest Moon and the owners of the name. And so the owners of the name have been shopping out to make Harvest Moon games that aren't that good for a while, and this next one, the next game that comes out on PC called Harvest Moon, has a decent chance of also not being that good. However, at the same time, in parallel, the actual creators of Harvest Moon are putting out games, and it turns out from the article I saw, Terrible Controls have all but ruined their new game. So that game too has such problems. So it really starts to boil down to the idea of if you hear the creators of Harvest Moon, or if you hear a game by the name of Harvest Moon, you're probably better off not playing it. Which means, I guess, Stardew Valley has a lot bigger of a chance of succeeding than for longer. One of the Minecraft mods that Minecrafters that I still watch on YouTube are doing is a Stardew Valley Minecraft mix match, and I'm not sure I'm really that interested in it to continue going through all of that, but let's see. Can I do anything to save myself here? Every time, whenever a minion is healed, draw a card.
I wonder.
Let's see.
Justice is mine.
If I can survive this next turn, I can put the pressure on them. Maybe work. Bandai Namco has helped form a new HTML5 game company called BXD. It's focusing on making free-to-play games using their licenses of RBI Baseball and DBZ. So that's really not much information or helpful for the hardcore gamers, other than to say Bandai Namco is focusing on making free-to-play HTML web browser games and probably not focusing as much on making good new games, which is pretty consistent with Bandai Namco. I mean, they're the ones that come out with like Pac-Man 256 and they're just reselling the same things over and over again. Dragon Ball Xenoverse, 1, 2, 3, how many different versions of that?
None can escape my fury.
Very consistent, flooding the market with mediocre products. I would much prefer that they take their creations, their stories, and find a better way to make good games out of it. Remedy has talked about how they're now past Xbox exclusivity. So Remedy is working on 2 games, neither of which are an Alan Wake remake, which ties into the fact that Alan Wake is no longer available because of an expired license, a music license. But there is a good chance that they will go forward and grow to be a bigger company and better company. So we want to keep an eye on them. I would say, though, there is also that danger of a chance that they become a bigger, better company and then get absorbed by some place like Ubisoft, or I don't think Konami would buy any companies these days, but Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, which is Activision Blizzard is growing and growing as a company now because they're going to start with Destiny 2 they're going to start putting their games, it seems like, only on the Battle.net launcher, so that they cut all Steam games out of it. I am kind of fine with Activision Blizzard putting their games only on the Battle.net Blizzard launcher, but I really wish they would have just command console launch commands so that I could put these games into Steam a little bit easier. I suppose you can add a non-Steam game easily to Steam, but when I family share the account information and memorize all of that, none of that crosses over. So if I bought Destiny 2 and then wanted to family share my account to somebody, then Destiny 2 wouldn't go over. The login to my Battle.net account wouldn't cross over. If I wanted to recover all of that, I'd have to have 2 passwords, 2 logins, and all of that extra hassle. But I also get the idea that they don't want to make Valve richer and richer because they want to keep the money themselves. And you know what? Valve hasn't been particularly the best at keeping Steam modern and updated and running and smooth to navigate. It's very difficult to find new games and things. Amongst all the mess. So there are some valid criticisms, I think, against Steam, but Battle.net in comparison, it only has 5 Blizzard games on it right now. So they've over filtered there. And I only play Hearthstone, so I'm only playing one of them right now. Maybe I'll eventually get around to the remakes of StarCraft and Diablo and get up to 3 or 4 games. I probably won't play Destiny. Speaking of that, there was a WoW update that was mentioned in an article, but as somebody who doesn't play WoW, I don't really see a good reason for me to talk about it.
I've got a heat. Justice is mine.
The game Rime came out, and I talked about Rime about a month ago or so, maybe a couple months ago, where it was originally a PlayStation exclusive, and then it went from an exclusive to non-exclusive, and I was talking about how that probably means there's a lot of problems with the game and it's not that good. It looks really pretty, and it still looks really pretty now that it's come out, but the two reviews I've seen so far, both of them are not very happy with it. The puzzles are obtuse, the pathfinding is almost non-existent, so you're randomly wandering around. Just not a great game at all, which is a shame. Certainly. I'm gonna hold on to this and instead do this.
Justice is mine.
Job done.
I really wish Rime came out and was a surprise success, but the fact that it was getting no advertising push at all, very few people were talking about it more than just the average amount of this is the announced date and this is when it's out. That's what you generally should get for all games, is the announced date has been announced, everybody should say that, and then it's out now and here's our review. 2 pieces of news and that's it. But you'll see lots of games push for more advertising, you'll see commercials, you'll see other actions taken.
Justice is mine.
Speaking of that, I have started watching GameSpot on YouTube, and GameSpot just takes trailers. Like, they took the Netflix Castlevania trailer and re-put it on their website. They just re-uploaded it straight. And I don't know if that puts them in a content ID situation sometimes, and they just don't care because they're GameSpot owned by CBS. Or if not, I mean, you legally do have a fair use claim to use trailers and advertising promo material, because that's what it's designed for.
Well played.
But very few YouTube channels that I watch actually take and make that effort
Justice is mine.
to take that material and put it on their channel. And frankly, I think it would probably just irritate my subscribers. For as few as I have, like, I think it would be very irritating if every now and then I just took people's put trailers up with no commentary. I'm not adding anything to it. In this instance, this one instance, because it's promo material and specifically labeled as promo material, you don't have to do that. But I don't think that would build a channel that would be very interesting. And it's not like I've ever seen on any of the trending videos, trending tabs, channels with just trailers. I see the original publishers' trailers sometimes catch up. So for the next movie, maybe. But that is something I could do if people are interested. I'd have to get a lot of feedback for that, though, if people did want to see trailers. And it would just come up very randomly. See, we only need 2 more victories and then we're done with everything, so I'm trying to rush through this. Oculus Rift now has full room scale tracking, which I think means that the Rift and the HTC Vive both have that. So the only ones that really wouldn't have that is probably the PlayStation VR and things like Cardboard and Samsung Galaxy VR. Full room scale tracking certainly adds some abilities so to stop you from walking into walls and just, you know, misnavigating yourself. However, I'm still very firmly of the opinion that the VR is dead in the water, and it won't be undead in the water until it gets really cheap. It gets very, very ubiquitous. If we saw that somehow the Project Scorpio gets announced at E3, I assume it will be announced at E3, and it comes by default with VR, and it's $350 or less, that would be amazing, and that might start us down that path. But then again, it might also just be something like the Wii. Like, the Wii had its Wiimotes for a long time, and we don't use Wiimotes today as remotes on TVs. We don't use Wiimotes as game controllers. The Joy-Cons are different from the Wiimotes enough that they still aren't being used the same way. So just because something gets introduced and it might be very popular at the time, and it might actually be a better way to interface with some things, it doesn't mean it's going to catch on. Here's a kind of the couple of news stories are completely pointless, but I put them on here. Like, Mass Effect Andromeda has an Apex Mission 8 that promises Quarians, but who really cares? Like, how can you be happy or even excited about Mass Effect Andromeda anything when you already know the company is putting it on the shelf? I heard an argument that they're saying they're putting it on the shelf so they can make a second reboot real quick, because they feel that they possibly feel like it's just Mass Effect Andromeda failed, but they can still do Mass Effect other games. But until they announce the next Mass Effect, or which I suppose to get out of this mess, you would not actually want to announce it. You would just want to stealthy release it. So, if in a year and a half to 2 years they came out and said, here's the new Mass Effect thing, it's a reboot of the reboot, we're just going to ignore it. You could, I suppose, wow, somebody I know just hit rank 10. I suppose you could just call it Mass Effect 4 and continue the story from the previous game in the main galaxy, or maybe you try Mass Effect Andromeda again by just going to a different galaxy than Andromeda and just go to yet a third place that's not Earth. I think you have to call it 4 though and just go like
That's
that.
not a valid target.
There you go. Far Cry 5 was announced. You play as a custom character who's the sheriff deputy against a Montana cult / militia group that has pretty much complete control of an entire fictional character, fictional county in Montana. We got a free victory here, so we might as well take it.
Justice is mine.
We're getting dangerously close to the last call, so if anybody wants to play me or anything, make sure they've sent in the friend requests. The links are down in the description. I play on the US server, so get that set up now, because I'm barely, at this rate, gonna have 2 recordings. Let's do this. The main concern that we're gonna have with Ubisoft making Far Cry 5 is 50%. Is it gonna just be another Far Cry? And remember, we also had Horizon Zero Dawn, which is kind of a more interesting Far Cry-esque game. And remember, Assassin's Creed is coming out, and it's very similar to the Far Cry games. All the Ubisoft games are very similar. And we had Far Cry Origins, or whatever it was called. That was the Far Cry game that came out about a year ago in the past, and then Far Cry 4 was about 2 years ago. So it's got to do something a little bit new, a little bit more interesting. It's got to keep people's attention and make people want to play this. I've just today, my Borderlands series started airing, and I'm still doing the DLC of Borderlands because I took a little bit of a break. And as I'm doing the last bits of the DLC for Borderlands 1, I'm thinking to myself, this is the last time I'm probably ever gonna okay, Loki wants to play. Loki always wants to play, of course. So when we wrap up maybe this recording, we'll start playing in a few minutes. We'll see if you're there. Then, but so yeah, as I'm playing Borderlands 1, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I don't think this is probably the 6th time I've played Borderlands 1, and I just don't think it holds up anymore. And I feel like that's probably going to be how a lot of people feel about Far Cry 5 too. Is that they're just going to be like, we've played 4 other Far Cry games in recent history. Are we ready to play another one? And some of those old Far Cry games aren't worth playing, so like if I was going to play them, I'd probably skip up to 4 and just do the latest 3 Far Cries, and that's it. The other 50% danger, of course, of doing a US-based cult / militia is it is certainly going to be dangerous if they don't handle it well. And I don't think Ubisoft has 100% been successful on handling the story well. They very well may insult half of the United States or more by stepping on morals and beliefs that are actually held by it. Because you could easily go wild with the idea of what they're presenting in Far Cry 5. Kind of like how Bioshock Infinite could have gone wild, because that's a cult theocracy of a city flying in the sky. You could have gone wild with that, and you could have been a harsh anti-Christian, anti-theism in general. You could have a harsh message like that and irritate a significant portion of the United States and the world. And you can also be, in the same step, Far Cry 5 could be a harsh anti-jingoism comment, which is to say anti-patriotism comment. And that would probably get the other half of the United States. So if they do it wrong, they're going to irritate everybody involved very, very badly. And if they do it right in Far Cry 5 and tell a good story, they're still probably going to irritate maybe a fourth, maybe a sixth of the population of the United States. I mean, they're starting with at least one hand tied behind their back. There's no way in a video game, I believe, Ubisoft can tell this beautiful story that will be retold for generations, that everybody will love and agree with, and there will be no controversy and no things. So, just on the face of it, you have to kind of wonder if they already know that Far Cry 5 is a bad game, and they're trying to sell it on the controversy. Kind of like the game Hatred did a couple of years ago, where Hatred was getting banned and there was all these controversies, and it convinced a lot of people to buy that game, and everybody who bought that game pretty much universally said, oh, this game kind of is bad. It's actually not worth playing or owning. And the controversy was really hyped for nothing. Let's move on to the next story. Microsoft has rebranded its Twitch competitor that was called Beam. It's now called Mixer. I have never heard of either of these companies. I did not know that Microsoft had a Twitch competitor, so they've done a terrible job on informing the public. The one thing that is interesting about it, and I wish this was something you could do through YouTube video, YouTube streaming, is you can have 4 streams of 4 different players playing 4 different games at the same time with a single chat. So imagine if you were to get into a group of people, and instead of having one TV channel that was streaming your favorite game, you had 4 TV channels that was streaming 4 different games. You could quadruple your target audience right there. Now, it still kind of limits the amount you could do in full screen, so you'd have to work with that still.
Justice is mine.
Because that would be the next step, I guess, is you'd want the ability to zoom out and see all 4 of them and see the chat, and then zoom in. And that's usually when you have a video producing team that's doing that and swapping between the 4 things. I could see ESPN doing that for a lot of things. It's like, let's get 4 football games, let's get 4 or 8 baseball games going on there, where we can just switch between them. Moving on, the creator of the game Seaman, which was a really popular game, Seaman, S-E-A-M-A-N, his name is Sato, SAITO has teased another sequel in the series. There's been several, not some of which didn't come to America.
Think. Justice is mine.
So that'll be interesting. Sadly, from what I hear, the reason why he's teased that is simply because he needs more money. So I don't think that's probably the best motivation ever. Let's just quickly go through all of the other things, because I'm not going to bother to make another recording. Beyond Good and Evil 3 is not coming to E3. The trailer for Beyond Good and Evil 2, excuse me, is almost 10 years old now. So yeah, that game's never coming out. That's a Duke Nukem Forever situation. Darkest Dungeon's first expansion is coming next month. There's a Kickstarter for the Tomb Raider suite of orchestra music that's gotten 31k of its 206,000 goal. I don't know why they're kickstarting a soundtrack for something like that instead of just selling it themselves. Destiny 2 will use hybrid servers, so they're not using the phrase dedicated servers, which confused and scared some people. But in the end, I think it's all a bunch of hogwash anyways, because you just are going to have to wait and see if the servers work well or not. Titanfall 2 has a latest DLC next week that's going to give you a new Titan, and Monster Hunter is heading to the Switch. So that gets all of the news out, except for one little rant I want to have about YouTube Spotlight promoting women producers again, because they're so desperate to have women YouTubers to the point where they barely mention anybody else. And they did that just today, and I guess that's for Memorial Day. I know Memorial Day is not till Monday, but I mean, seriously. And the weird thing there is, as far as I can tell, they're not vet women. Like, if you could find a bunch of YouTubers who served in any army for Memorial Day, and I think Memorial Day is specific to the United States, the one that's happening here. So it would have to be YouTubing women who were veterans. I'd be like, okay, you've stretched it, but you've gotten it. But they didn't even do that much. So that's something I want to write. They also promoted 3 new Elton John videos. So what that has to do with Memorial Day, I don't know either. That's YouTube's just promoting things to make money because they're getting paid to promote things. Anyways, that's going to be it for the recordings in this stream. And we're just going to see if people want to play. Otherwise, just 2 recordings, not a big deal. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.